Well, I just got back from the Fuji event, and I have to inform you guys that I'm switching to Fuji, and it's not just because of all this sweet swag. It's because of this, the X-T3. Let's get undone. Gerald undone. He's crazy. Okay, so I'm not actually switching to Fuji because truthfully, I don't even know what that sentence means. I just said it to annoy all the angry fans of other brands. But this is a serious camera, and in my opinion, Fuji's first fully viable video option. And that's probably an understatement, and I think I can prove that when we get into the specs in just a minute. But before we do, I want to get out of this Fuji garb because I look ridiculous. And I also want to show you a little vlog that I made to share the awesome day that I had at the Fuji event. So from now on, everything you see will have been shot on the X-T3, save for a couple of GoPro shots. And while you're watching that, I'm even going to switch out the GH5 with the X-T3 so we can film the rest of this video on it too. My approach to testing the Fuji for the event was to do the camera no favors. So I turned down the offer to use a gimbal. I shot entirely handheld with no accessories. I used only the 18 to 55mm kit lens for the majority of the footage. I didn't allow myself multiple takes to get the perfect shot, and I used the default untuned settings for the AFC, so basically I let the camera handle the focusing itself. Basically, I was trying to capture footage that would show the absolute minimum of what you can do with this camera, and despite that, I was still really impressed with the sharpness and performance. Okay, let's pause here for a second because I can already see where this is going. Meh, you're only promoting Fuji now because they flew you around in a helicopter and let you drive fancy cars. Sell out. And you'd be correct. Alright, see you in the next video. Nah, come on, that's ridiculous. Now, while I will admit that the event was pretty sweet and I was happy to go, and I still have a little bit more of it to show you, it doesn't really play into my review that much because the specs don't lie. So let's get into those specs right now, and I'll tell you about the ones that are important to me, and we'll talk about some value considerations along the way. So first up, the obvious one, this camera has 4K 60, and you can record that internally for up to 20 minutes. You can record up to 30 minutes for all the rest of the modes, as per the usual, and the 4K 60 has an additional crop of 1.18 times that the other modes do not. Now, that's not a huge deal, but you will notice a slight change in your field of view if you're pretty used to having no additional crop. But we are getting a full oversampled readout, so there's not going to be any line skipping or pixel binning, so we're going to have reduced noise and reduced moire. You can record 10-bit internally, including on the 4K 60, and not just an Ultra HD 4K, so 3840 by 2160, but also DCI 4K in the 17:9 aspect ratio. You can use all those settings as well. And I don't think there's anything on the market in this format that can do that right now. I mean, my trusty GH5 can do 4K 60 and it can do 10-bit internal, but it can't do both at the same time. And we're getting that larger sensor with the APS-C, so we're going to get better low light performance with ISOs up to 12,800. But I found the 6,400 to 8,000 range was very usable, so depending on taste, you're going to get much better low light performance at those codecs. Now, in order to achieve this, the X-T3 is using the more efficient H.265 codec for the more demanding 10-bit modes, with H.264 being available for 8-bit. The 10-bit is slightly limited internally at 420, but 422 is available over HDMI regardless of whether using H.264 or H.265. The All-Intra and the 400 megabit per second codecs are also available at 24p and 30p. It also has 120p slow motion modes over 1080, but in all of these recording modes, it still breaks up the files into 4 GB chunks, which which is something that I wish that was improved upon in this release. Also, these 10-bit H.265 clips are going to be much harder on your computer. I noticed significantly worse timeline performance using them versus, say, using the 10-bit H.264 clips from my GH5. But this has nothing to do with Fuji and everything to do with better recordings needing better compression, which needs better computer hardware and/or software implementations from the editing suites. The X-T3 has a new sensor, the X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor, which comes in at 26.1 megapixels and has lower base ISOs. 160 is now the base ISO if you're using a regular curve, and 640 if you're using F-Log, but ETERNA is also available as it was ported over from the XH1, which is a pretty good straight out of the camera flat profile that you can use. I enjoyed the ETERNA a lot more on the X-T3 than I did on the XH1, which was one of my complaints. I didn't really see what all the fuss was about, and I think that this new sensor is handling its color business in a way that is making for a more pleasing image for my taste, so much so that I might actually starting to become a fan of the famous Fuji colors. Now, I'm not a big autofocus guy, but I was pretty impressed with the performance on the X-T3. It has this new 425-point phase detect system that gives you full coverage across the frame and isn't hindered at all in the video modes. I felt pretty comfortable using it all day with no tweaking whatsoever at the event and found that it held up incredibly well. It's hard to draw precise comparisons to other brands, but the way in which I used it, which was with the box AF as well as I had the eye and face detect on, I found that it achieved focus, doing what I wanted or what I expected it to do about 85 or 90% of the time, which is I'm fine with. And this video itself right now that you're watching, I have the same settings on. I have it on just sort of the balanced, unchanged AFC settings. I have it on AFC, and I have eye and face detect on. And so this video will be sort of a testament to whether you're satisfied with how well the autofocus works in this type of shooting scenario, which could be talking head, vlog, whatever. It's been on the entire time. Now, for the manual focusers like me, they have carried over the option for linear focusing to be enabled, which gives you much more precise and logical focusing without the acceleration. And also the AF on button, once it's mapped, can be used to override focus when in the manual focus mode for sort of an instant snap focus. There's also been a significant improvement to the rolling shutter, so you're going to get a lot less jelly. And when using the electronic shutter for stills, I was able to capture a spinning helicopter propeller at full speed with very little warping in the blade. I'm quite happy with the input-output situation on this camera. You've got two UHS-2 SD card slots, and on this side you have a removable cover that contains the headphone jack out, the mic in, the USB-C port, and the micro HDMI port. Now, I would have liked a full-size HDMI, but compromises had to be made for size because this is modeled closely after the X-T2 body. The most notable of those compromises for size is the lack of in-body image stabilization. The bigger XH1 has it, but sadly the X-T3 does not, which was rather disappointing. Now, I did find that if you're using wider focal lengths and you have image stabilization turned on the lens, you are able to get some reasonably steady handheld shots, but it's definitely nowhere near GH5 level, and I think that you can see that in some of the vlog shots from earlier. Now, a huge step up from the XH1 when it comes to outputs, though, is the relocation of the headphone jack into the body itself off of the optional vertical grip. The grip is also not needed to achieve maximum recording lengths or activate any of the features of boost mode, so thankfully on the X-T3, the grip is exactly what it should be, just an additional power source, which reduces the total cost of the usable video machine even further from the XH1, which definitely needed the vertical grip in order to function as a video camera. Now, when it comes to power, one of the major disappointments of the X-T3 was a lack of a new battery design. It's still using the same battery from previous generations, and although the X-T3 does have a more efficient use of it, getting you maybe 15% longer battery life, it would have been nice to see a newer, bigger battery implemented in this one. Now, there is always USB power, however, through the USB-C port, where you could use power banks and possibly USB-AC adapters. Now, the grip, which is at an additional cost and is not compatible with previous generations, you're going to have to get the dedicated X-T3 grip if you want it, does come with two more of the same batteries, and it also comes included with a DC power source, which you can plug into the side of the grip here, which will also make the grip sort of double as a charger, which will charge the two batteries that are inside. Now, during the event, I tested the batteries for a more conservative use, ensuring to turn the camera off between shots, only engaging them the camera when I knew exactly what shot I wanted to take, and like I said before, not doing much in the way of retakes. And I found that I used 2 full batteries and was just barely into my 3rd battery after about an 8-hour day of doing that. Now some of my cohorts though that were also using the camera and doing a more aggressive style of kind of capturing everything, switching modes, they found that they were using more like 5 to 6 batteries. So that would be probably a more practical sort of full day aggressive shooting, you know, power drain. You might be looking more like 5 to 6. Now right now we're doing a test to see what an always on, always recording usage is like, because this video is being recorded without any additional power and I don't even have the grip on. I've got both grips right here. So far it's been recording for 41 minutes and we have only 1 bar left and it's red. So that makes me think that we're gonna get maybe 45, 50 minutes total of an always on, always recording. And we're also gonna be able to use this to check and see what the heating situation is like. I did experience some heat, especially with the larger codecs, but it was nothing that ever turned into a problem because of the record times. And I've been noticing now that obviously once I hit 20 minutes, I have to stop recording and start again. So I'm stretching that out, and I imagine that if the record time wasn't capped at 20 minutes, that we would probably see some heating issues. But so far so good, but obviously I'll let you know as we keep recording this if we encounter any issues where the camera has to turn off due to heat. I'll just do a little bit of a touch test now. It's warm. It feels like you know, when you have a laptop on your lap and you're doing some heavy stuff and you start to hear the fans go and you touch close to the monitor and it's got that kind of warm where it's, I wouldn't call it comfortable, but it's not burning you. That's what we're looking at right now with about 40 to 50 minutes of recording. I'm also happy to report that the shutter button, which of course doubles as your video record button, is back to being a firm, clicky one versus that spongy hair trigger that was on the XH1. It has over 60 points of weather resistance and has the same tilty, flippy screen, so not fully articulating, but it is touch sensitive and is pretty accurate and useful when it comes to touch focusing. Now there's no dedicated AF on button like I was saying earlier, but there are 2 buttons here that can be programmed, one which is AE lock and one that is AF lock. If I had to be nitpicky, I wish that the buttons were a little bit bigger, a little bit better placed, especially the joystick I found to be quite small and a bit of a strange reach, and I think that there could have been a little bit better, you know, thumb thought when it came to an AF on button. Also, as I was saying earlier, F-Log is included, which is of course a nice feature to have included for free because some companies still charge you for it, Panasonic. But just like I felt with the XH1, it's not the best log profile I've ever worked with, but it's also not the worst. Sort of a medium difficulty to grade and you get, you know, mediumly satisfactory results out of it. This shot that you're looking at now was recorded with F-Log, and I also did 2 shots of some exotic cars during the event. One that I shot with ETERNA, and then a similar shot done with F-Log. Oh yeah, and you see the red Ferrari in that clip? I got to drive that thing. Alright, so value conclusions. The X-T3 is going to start shipping in a couple weeks and it's going to be $14.99 US or $18.99 Canadian. And the obvious comparisons are going to be to the GH5 or the Sony A7 III, which are both more expensive. Now it's not full frame, but it's also larger than Micro Four Thirds. It has the best video modes of the group, and it's a solid performer in every aspect except for battery life. And it's not a perfect camera. I mean, I really wish that at an IBIS, I think that would have made it, you know, even more compelling than what it is. The GH5 obviously has this trumped when it comes to image stabilization and of course battery life. And I also found the GH5 screen to be a little bit more useful than this one. But this is a small camera, and it feels quite light now that I've been used to the full frame mirrorless and the way that I have my GH5 kitted out. So this seems like a great gimbal camera option. And of course, putting it on a gimbal would completely override the lack of in-body image stabilization. But when it comes to focusing, image quality, low light performance, color science, and just pure functionality, it's pretty fantastic. And it's the cheapest of the lot, making it hard to beat from a value perspective. This is a serious contender. It's definitely the best APS-C video camera out there, and it's worth a serious look for a video shooter. It's funny, my journey with Fuji this year has been an interesting one. I started the year out not being very impressed with the X-T2 and making a video making fun of Fuji for that botched firmware update. and the curious nature of the Instax market. And I blame my disinterest in Fuji on being a video first shooter and not really ever finding what I needed in Fuji's highly photo first product line. Then the X-H1 came out and Fuji wanted another shot at impressing me with their most video-esque camera to date, which of course brings us to my most recent video, in which I said basically that despite the X-H1 getting a whole bunch more things right, I still can't recommend it based on its price, its reliance on that vertical grip, and in a market where the alternatives from Sony are available. So now here we are with round 3 of Fuji versus Gerald's video needs, and I have to admit that they've done it. They've made a camera that satisfies everything I was asking for, and then some. And I think it's important to say so, because it makes no sense to complain about missing features or things you don't like in a camera if you're not going to admit it when a company takes what you say and turns around and nails it. Because otherwise you're just being a stubborn fanboy, and those attitudes never lead to innovation or progress. So in short, would I recommend the X-T3? Definitely. Am I going to buy one? Probably. Am I going to go crazy and sell all my camera gear and take all my Sony and Panasonic and Olympus stuff and switch it over to Fuji and wear complete Fuji merchandise everywhere I go and start making videos called Why I'm Switching from Sony to Fuji? No, of course not. But I will take back one of my sentences from earlier this year when I said that Fuji has never really been the answer for me. Because as of making this video, and with the X-T3, Fuji is easily one of the best answers out there for compact video shooting in 2018. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. All right, I'm done.